Do you hear that, guys? You know what that means. That's right, International Rocket League is back, baby. 16 of the world's best teams will be meeting in Rotterdam in about a week to decide who will take the first major of the season, and boy do we have some stellar teams. I already made a video talking about one of the frontrunners, Karmine Corp, but as I said in that video, there are so many teams that have a legitimate chance to win this whole thing. With basically none of these teams playing against each other so far this season, we're mostly just guessing what these matchups will look like. One of the strongest tools I think we have to project what this tournament might look like are stats, and oh mama, do I have some stats for you. We're going to take a look at each core stat to hopefully gain a clearer understanding of what our players look like across this split as we head into LAN. Along the way, hopefully we can answer some questions like what do our regions look like differently from one another, who is leading each stat from their respective region, and hopefully get a little bit closer to answering everyone's favorite question, who is the GOAT in the world right now? It is really tricky to look at global stats from the full split because each region currently finds themselves at vastly different skill levels and parity. For example, while Europe has been in such a deadlock that last season's world champions have missed the first LAN, Gen.G, on the other hand, their stats look like they've been spending the whole split competing against rookie bots in APAC. In a general sense, I think the global regions currently fall into tiers like this. Of course, there are many factors outside of the core stats that affect performance, like team chemistry, play style, the pressure that comes with playing in front of thousands of people, but we haven't seen any of that yet, and I don't have any numbers to help me out with that, guys, so let's just go ahead and get into some stats already, why don't we? Different play styles are deployed across the world, but no matter what you do on the pitch, one of the only consistent stats for top teams is win percentage. Gen.G has won an astounding 91% of their games, and they lead the field heading into our LAN event. We have a perfect split of emerging region teams and NAEU teams when we look at win percentage. Every single team from around the world lies above our average, which is where we find Team Secret, all the way down to Quadrant, who have barely stayed above positive, winning roughly 53% of their games so far. Depending on how challenging the runs have been, total matches played fluctuates from the top, Karmine Corp at 97 games, all the way down to G2's 62 games. While we're talking about totals, so far we've had over 14,000 goals, nearly 11,000 assists, and almost 32,000 saves from our players across the world. Starting with goals, APAC's current version of the Monstars sit first, second, and third in goals per game. Amphis represents Oceania with his 1.22 goals per game leading power. Lost looks to return the club to their world's playoff form, and so far his 1.21 goals per game is leading them in the right direction. Ahmad lands 6th to wrap up our emerging regions. Apparently Jack slots in 9th, just above a goal per game. And by the way, he's the only NA and EU player to be above a goal per game. Finally, Jorius rounds out the world in 12th place. His 0.89 goals per game average is impressive, but Jorius leading the world in LAN goals per game over the last season is even more impressive in my opinion. Assists are something that is spread far more evenly across our regions than goals. We see players like First Killer and Nolly cracking into our top 10. Realize leads the world with 1.28 dimes per contest. Fever slots in 4th after the entirety of Gen.G once again. First Killer's 0.8 assists per is substantially higher than his 0.72 he averaged last season. First continues to adapt and develop his game to be more team-oriented. Our LAN average of 0.64 is much higher than the world overall average of 0.53. Some players are surprisingly low, with Torment and Joyo averaging a paltry 0.38 assists per game. Daniel and Cash are sitting right next to them with 0.39 per. The primary stat we use to describe defensive impact is saves. Our primary regions have a tie for first, with both Archie and Daniel delivering 2.14 saves per game. O'Khaled takes the bronze through the fall split with his 2.12 saves, just behind our leaders. KV1, who has moved from the club over to Team Secret, is in 13th place. Across the globe, our average player records 1.58 saves per. Our average for players attending LAN is a bit lower at 1.49 saves. We have 29 players in the world above 2 saves per game, but only 4 of them are going to be at Major. Beast Mode may be lower than the other 3 on average, but his 183 total saves are the most in the world. We've seen some movement from players in new roles from last year to this season. Archie's #1 overall save total is actually a touch lower than the 2.2 he averaged last year. Mist has dropped a bit as well, with FaZe spending less time on defense. Vatira has dropped his total, and Relating Wave, the often shaded veteran, has increased his average from 1.53 last season to 1.84 so far, which rates him 10th highest among LAN players. Well, it was fun while it lasted not having Virtuoso in first place. An unbelievably high 4.3 shots per game easily ranks him first in the world through our first 3 regional events. Lost has been lighting South America on fire with shots. His 3.85 shots per is good for second. Ahmad is third with 3.69. Daniel may not pass it much, but his 3.65 shots ranks him 4th globally. Super Lucky is 5th, Atau is 6th, delivering a beautiful top 6 players being from each of our 6 regions. How cool is that? The global average lands at 2.68 shots per. The LAN average is higher, just above 3 shots per. This is where we find Beast Mode. Newcomer Bems takes less shots than anyone else in Rotterdam at 2.37. He is very far from being on the list of players who have taken over 300 total shots. Ahmad, Vatira, Lost, Appjack, and TRK511. Shots are one piece of the equation, but shooting percentage tells us more about how efficient a player is on the offensive end. With the world average at around 25% and the LAN average at 26%, some elite scorers like Joria's and First Killer show about average numbers. Inflated numbers from emerging regions like Realize and Torsos, both being above 39%, alter our figures dramatically. An exclusive club may be forming that I'll be keeping my eye on. So far, 7 players are above both 3 shots per game and 30% shooting. They are Ahmad, Appjack, Lost, Amphis, and of course, all of Gen.G's. Knight from Team Secret and Super Lucky from Pioneers just missed the cutoff. The reason I'm interested in this is few top players were able to achieve this for the totality of last season. Although Chicago was darn close, shooting above 3 shots per game on a 26.5% shooting percentage. This season, Chicago is still above 3 shots per game and shooting a quality number above 24%. Mist has also jumped enormously on far less shots per game. His role on FaZe as finishing up plays in space created by his teammates is suiting him very well so far. How much you're contributing on offense is tightly bundled into goal participation. What percent of goals are you a part of by scoring or assisting? GP is great because the percentage can never be higher than 100%, so we find some common ground among players to see what they're doing for their teams. Knight is right around the world average at 59-ish%, and JNaps is a hair higher at the LAN average. First Killer leads the world above 70%. Rise is 2nd, and Lost is 3rd. Super Lucky has been a do-it-all player for Pioneers on the offensive end. Ahmad is known for his offensive prowess, and Virtuoso just cannot help himself from participating in a lot of points for Gen.G's. It's rare for a player with high GP to have more assists than goals. Some players are close, like Archie and Realize, but Sad is the only player above LAN average to meet this mark. Speaking of Sad, him and his teammates from Team Secret spread their attacks incredibly even, with all 3 members being within 2 percentage points of one another. Version 1 is doing the exact opposite of Team Secret, with Beast Mode being 8th entering the LAN, with both Calm and Torment near the bottom of all in attendance. Rating is far from foolproof, with players like Arsenal and Astral being near the bottom of the pile. It also doesn't fairly convey defensive quality, with Torment and Achronic being so low, but In a general sense, rating is pretty good. Cash is entering Major at the world average, and his teammate EXO sits at the LAN average. APAC once again leads the world with Vert's ungodly 1.57. Amphis has put together an overall stellar fall, landing 4th. Lost is tied for 5th, basically sweeping South America in every core stat. And First Killer once again leads this category for North America for I think about the 20th year straight. Ahmad continues his impressive run with Falcons, and Jorias represents Europe at 10th place for LAN players. Typically on LAN, rating will drop substantially as the competition is higher and nerves increase. Players like Jorias, Appjack, Rise, and Beast Mode lead our LAN averages over last season, but we'll see who steps up this time around. So many players have had incredible starts to the season, but who has been the best? Well, it's too tough to say. If you're asking for my opinion, I think there's a small group of players existing around the top. Ahmad and TRK have both had excellent seasons so far for Falcons. Amphis has been pretty incredible this season for Power. Virtuoso has been doing it all for Gen.G, and Lost is a truly elite player existing in an emerging region. For my money, I have the list as follows, with apparently Jack being the best player in the world so far. We'll see if this holds up on LAN or not. There will certainly be some known players who rise to the occasion and some who falter under the lights. We will also welcome a swell of newcomers who can put the world on notice or underperform expectations. We'll find out more in the upcoming week as we experience our first major of the year. I am incredibly excited to watch LAN, and until then, very interested to hear who you all have as your top players in the world heading into Rotterdam. Please let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take it easy.